Hey there, how's it going? Some people have asked me why, or they don't necessarily ask, they just make a judgment towards me because I do these things. But they're basically asking, Kazoom, why do you focus so much on the way your videos look and the way that they sound? You obsess on it. Now, they don't actually say it that way, but that's essentially what they're saying, and they're right. I do obsess on those things. And maybe to a fault, Maybe it gets in the way. But I get enjoyment out of it. Now, occasionally I'll ask people, hey, do you think I look better when I was on the side like this, with the mic in the view, or when I'm in the center, or whatnot? I did want to know that, but what even made me worry about that is there's someone who the only reason why they'll ever post any comments on my videos is to troll me, because they got really offended because I critiqued someone's video production on one of their videos. I said, to me, there's basic video making 101. Especially if you have some light in the background that the camera can see, then you need to have some sort of light in front of you. Some sort of light in front of you. But this person, they had a light on in the background, and then the only thing that you could see, any significant light, was the reflection off of their glasses from the monitors. Couldn't make out hardly any of it. And when you have a camera that doesn't really handle low lighting very well, and you give it low lighting, it looks like a potato cam. Right? As far as I'm concerned, if someone's going to have that bad of video production, where there's not even a chance you could see their eyes, and it's just this almost silhouette, it's just so, and everything is all grainy and just and grainy in a way that only an older webcam can do, right? It'd be better to just put an image up on the screen and talk into a microphone. Then, in that regard, you could write down what you want to say so you can make it more solid. Something like that. But, I just mentioned, hey, I can't see your eyes. And this person who is a fan of the person that I critiqued, is really pissy. And so every few months, they'll come on to my channel and make backhanded comments. They'll say, oh, what is this? Is this a commentary video or a movie production? And then they'd go on. The last one was going on about how this looks pretentious and off-putting, and why am I way off to the side? Didn't know it was that same person again. And so I said, well, I'll try messing with that. Maybe I'll ask some people about it. But prior to him saying that, I hadn't really thought about it. I just thought that this format looked good and I was happy with it. But, then after I explained, the reason why I do this, I like to face slightly to the right like this. It's when when I'm off to the side, I can have my face turned to the side a little bit and it doesn't seem out of place. I think I look much better when you can see an angled shot versus if you just see me looking straight at the camera. I just think generally I look better. There was a number of things that I explained, and then he responded by saying, oh, well, you need to use the rule of thirds, right? Trying to be the most condescending that he could. Well, then he referenced the person that I had originally critiqued his video production and says, well, maybe if you cared more about your content than the way that it looks, you'd actually have a good channel or something on that order. So it's like, all right, this guy again. So anyway, I've focused on video production and lighting and the way recordings sound and microphones and such. I've focused on that kind of thing most of my life. And when I was little, I had my mom gave me a tape recorder and a bunch of tapes. I'd make little stupid skits, usually about potty humor or something. And, but I really learned how sound worked with that because, I would tinker with the tape recorder like if you push, on some of those old ones, if you push play not all the way down, the reels would move fast. It would play fast. So I would try to find a way to record onto the tape with it going fast like that. On what happens? What does this sound like? And of course, making, fart sounds and slowing them down. Oh, isn't that funny, right? But I learned about the fact that the erase head, the recording head is just a little bit away from the erase head. So if you can record on the tape just a moment before it does the erase head, I would do harmonies and stuff because it's almost like using not really, but I guess it's like using a multi-track recorder or something, but only for just a second. So I'd do things like I'd go through the notes that are in chords, and you'd hear them go do 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 do, right? But they would blend into each other enough that if I did it fast enough, you could sometimes hear three notes at the same time. They started at slightly different times, but you can actually get a point where you can hear three notes at the same time. I messed with that. Turning the tape backwards, so you can listen to things backwards. I learned quickly how the spelling of word. If you say a word based off of how it's spelled backwards, it's totally different than if you actually do the sound of a word backwards. So, for instance, kizoom is a mispronunciation of music backwards. It'd be actually music, but and some people have thought, oh, it's e-music. And I suppose that's the way it could be looked at. But no, it was just meant to be a mispronunciation of music backwards, music. But yeah, if it was actually music backwards, it'd be kazooim. And, well, that sounds really weird. So modified it, made it spelled nicely, and that's how I came up with my name. But I think about how obsessed I was with the way things sounded, and especially on CRT televisions, the color on them. Now, I wasn't as bad about this as my brother was. He just went crazy on this sort of thing. But, if I was in an electronics store and they had some televisions that the color was just really off, I would go through and adjust it so it looked right. Sometimes I'd try to make, at least most of the televisions all have the same color on them. Make them all look, nice and uniform. And my brother, though, would do that almost every time. Oh, man, if he ever went to a store that had clocks in them, he had to set every clock to the second. It was just pretty over the top. But anyway, and in my later years, if I was at a friend's house and I could see that, everything is kind of red. Those weren't things you could adjust on just the front of it. You had to, and I had these little plastic tools, and so you have to take off the back of the television, and sometimes they have little adjustments you can do with your fingers, but sometimes they would be these things, you'd have to use these special plastic tools. And you can adjust the upper and lower cutoff, the RGB values of everything that's white and everything that's dark, RGB value. So you could make something so all the whites look white, but all the dark colors look, kind of bluish or, greenish or reddish, right? Or any combination of those. And the goal was to make it so, dark gray is dark gray and white is white. Yeah, and there's also a focus. Focus is a totally separate adjustment from sharpness. So, anyway, I'd go through and adjust those things for my, on the televisions of my friends. A lot of it I learned from my brother. I should say just about all of it I learned from my brother. He's always really good with that stuff, but he would obsess more than I would about it. But I've always been big into just the way things look and the way things sound. With music, most of the time it's only been, recent that this has been any different, but most of the time I didn't really care what the lyrics of a song were. Didn't really pay much attention. I'd sometimes memorize them because that's just part of the song, but for me the main thing was the music. What are the chords being played? How is it produced? What do the drums sound like? What's the melody? Is this song musically much different than other songs? What stands out about it? Musically. Well, but especially the way things were produced. I'm usually pretty good at guessing when a song was made, even if I'd never heard it before, but I could just hear just a few seconds of the song and be like, oh, that had to have been like 1973, 1974. And I'll usually be right. Man, the 50s and 60s were pretty easy to guess there too. Every time there'd be a new piece of studio equipment that became common, those things got used, and it became a defining moment of, music production at that particular time. So, but yeah, I obsess on this stuff, and it's really enjoyable. I get something really good out of being able to make a video that says, hey, that looks good. That actually looks good. I was able to make something look really good without, some of these people, they spend thousands and thousands of dollars on this stuff, and I was able to get this to look good without spending that. That's cool. And I'm amazed at so many of the, so much technology that's out now. Movies can be made on the cheap now. Honestly, as long as you don't require a bunch of special effects, movies can be made on the cheap now. That's what's so absurd about these big blockbuster movies. They're absurd. They're just, you can already do so many things. You don't have to always show everything. What I mean by that is like something that requires CGI. No, you don't have to show it. Show people's reaction to it. The characters in the movie. Show the reaction to it. But you don't have to put computer things. It just computer effects that you can tell are computer effects. It makes it play like a video game. And they're so actiony. The way that they're filmed in general, it's like, yeah, this is like watching someone play a video game. What am I supposed to feel for any of these characters? Especially when it's these Marvel movies. What are you supposed to feel for any of those characters? But some of it just has to do with the source material. I'm sorry, I just don't. I don't understand. I've never understood the focus on this whole superhero comics thing. That just could never understand it. The original Superman movies they didn't really flow like a comic book. It was a bit different. But it was also kind of cheesy. At the time, we didn't think it was cheesy, but you look back at it now, and the Christopher Reeves Superman movies were, there's some real cheese in those things, but, and, you know, they obviously did some special effects that you just kind of go, oh, that's so bad, right? Now, you know, but it wasn't filmed like some fast action movie. You know, I don't know. But I mean, that was one of the first times that they had really brought reasonably a comic book to a movie where you could actually feel something for the characters. You know, that was kind of the focus. That's why I can still enjoy the original Superman movies. You know, you could feel something for the characters. Character development was important and not just something that feels like a storybook. It's what most of the new comic book movies are like. It's just like you're not letting me actually connect to who this person is. What is the essence of this person? I don't know. But anyway, you know, movies that don't require a lot of special effects can be made on the cheap now. You know, I'm hoping that this whole lockdown situation kind of kicks Hollywood in the ass to stop it with these stupid, huge blockbuster movies that are just a roller coaster rather than being, I'm sorry, a piece of cinema, an actual good piece of cinema. I may focus a lot on the way things look and how they sound, but when movies, I mean, when my biggest issue, I guess, with these blockbuster movies, the way they're filmed is absolutely formula. There is nothing individualistic in any way about the way they're filmed. You can't really tell the difference between one director and another when that's the way they're filmed. It's all the same. And there used to be different types of messages that movies would try to convey. There'd always be some sort of moral to the story. You know, generally the script writers would have a moral of some sort. The directors would have a moral of some sort. And now the only thing that they really talk about, they try to cram into a movie is identity politics, identity ideology. Just kind of cram that in there. You know, there were times where we'd try to push, you know, let's change up the cast to have different characters than like The Wiz. You know, The Wiz was an all-black cast sort of version, reimagining of The Wizard of Oz. But they were very original. They just really tried to step away from the original, the traditional way of approaching The Wizard of Oz. And I thought it was, I mean, there's a lot of cringe involved, but some of that's just the time period in which it was filmed. But there were definitely some enjoyable elements to it. God, the cheesiest one are the attack trash cans. I just think, well, what are they gonna suck you towards them? What are they? They're gonna suck you towards them? Are they a vacuum cleaner? Oh, they're gonna eat you. Though I guess as a kid, it might have had some scariness to it, I suppose. But you know, back then, they could make movies with changing around the cast, and nobody made a big deal about it. The way things are now, if it is a social justice warrior kind of thing they're trying to put into the movie as the moral, you know, if they're pushing an identity politics thing into the movie as a moral, a lot of people have gotten tired of it. What people don't seem to realize is some of what we're missing are larger morals being put into the movies. And then maybe people say, oh, we don't want any morals. So what do you want? What is a movie supposed to do for you? Is it just pure entertainment? You don't care about getting any insight out of a movie? You don't want to learn anything out of a movie? It's just pure entertainment? I don't understand that mindset. I don't. Entertainment you actually get nothing out of. That's just a waste. And then when it comes to morals, and when I'm talking about morals, it's just like, okay, let's take a deep look at human nature. What are the things that we should probably not do? If there's a character that's supposed to be bad in the movie, why are they bad, and why don't we want to be that way? Why are the good characters good, and why do we want to be that way, or more like that? It's why the movies were the bad guy. When the bad guy has no background, has no anything that you can connect with the character, and they're just a bad guy, and the good guys get the bad guys. That's always just been stupid to me. That's not any sort of moral. It's a falsity. It's as stupid as everyone lived happily ever after. Yeah, it's as stupid as that. The good guys versus the bad guys. I guess I'm thinking about Superman a little bit more, because I'm just like, well, that was sort of good guys. The original Superman movies. They're sort of good guys versus bad guys. But those bad guys like Lex Luthor still seem kind of human, Now when it comes to the 3 aliens from Krypton that escaped, Neil before Zod, there was an understanding of why they felt the need to just get more power, right? But there was also still kind of a cheesiness to it as well. I don't know. I don't know exactly why I can handle the original Superman movies. I don't know. I'm thinking maybe why I sort of still like those original movies. Maybe some of it has to do with John Williams' soundtrack. It's some of the reason why, let's say, I liked the Bond movies, was that John Barry did the soundtracks. Very moody soundtracks. The best one, as far as I'm concerned, was for Moonraker. There's a song called Flight into Space by John Barry, and it's just an awesome piece of music as far as I'm concerned. It's I've listened to that soundtrack so many times, it's just more than I can count. It was just probably one of his best works, was that the soundtrack to that movie. And I guess what has me upset about so many new movies is that there's no, I kind of said it earlier, there's nothing that makes one director any better than any other. Everything's been so refined that there's no individual anything to the way so many movies are filmed anymore. And so many, I'm sorry, so many of the soundtracks just suck. God, I hate the, God, how do you describe it? It's really hard to describe, but then there's no way to hum it either, Like, if you watch a trailer for an action movie, almost any action movie, there's a generic kind of soundtrack they have. There's nothing memorable about it other than, it's trying to keep you at the edge of your seat, everyone. But nothing memorable. Nothing you'll think about later and hum it or something. It's not going to go through your mind, wasn't that a great piece of music? That's just done. It's gone. And it's just like the movie production itself. You can't tell the difference between one soundtrack artist and another because nothing stands out. I even think about Harry Potter. The first 3 movies, those were John Williams' works. They were masterpieces as far as I'm concerned. But once you got to the later movies where John Williams was not doing the soundtrack, you were left with nothing memorable. It was just, but it kind of matched the movies. The movies were supposed to be darker. And John Williams doesn't really, I'll admit it, John Williams doesn't present a really dark image that well. He does mystery really well. He can invoke the feelings of the characters really well, because that's kind of how he writes. Every character has a theme. Every scene has a theme, and when those characters are in that scene, you can hear the character's song with the theme of whatever the scene is. His methodology is just amazing. He will be known as probably the greatest movie soundtrack composer in history. God, isn't he 88 now? What an amazing set of accomplishments that guy has had. But, now back to, action movies and the soundtracks to them. Modern soundtracks to them. They're just fucking terrible. Nothing memorable. Nothing. Other than, oh, well, it's the edge of your seat music, everyone. Look, sit at the edge of your seat. That's the kind of scene you're in. Go ahead, sit at the edge of your seat. Oh, you're doing such a good job, Johnny. I mean, that's kind of the way that I think a lot of these modern action movies, and especially the comic book movies, they treat their audience like they're children. And you get these rewards for reacting a particular way. I just can't stand the formula way that they're done. It's a formula and an amusement park ride. I just don't get what's supposed to be enjoyable about those things. Again, I want to learn something or gain some sort of insight, from watching a movie, or get a peek into the human psyche in some way. Something. Give us something. Something to leave with other than, oh, wasn't that a nice roller coaster we just went on? I'm just thinking, that's kind of a neat thing about the website Vimeo when it comes to independent filmmakers. You find a lot of indie films there. Usually they're pretty short, but there are some that aren't. And all of those were able to be made on a budget that's just a tiny, tiny fraction of what you usually find in Hollywood, and they're just as good quality. And they usually focus on the human psychology in some way. You can get something out of it. Yeah, even if it's just something like, oh, it made you really, really happy for a period of time. It made you really, really sad for a period of time. But it's not going to give you the exhilaration of being, on a roller coaster ride, on an amusement park ride. It's not going to do that. But that's not what they're supposed to do. So, but perhaps I, in some ways, am just getting to be an old fuddy-duddy. I don't know. So many of the things that I found important in movies is going by the wayside. Those things are not seen as important. And you know what? I mean, maybe to the general public, they're not. But maybe none of the things that I've found even in the past as being important, maybe those weren't important to other people either. Back then. Perhaps I've been out of touch with what the general public likes all around. I don't know. But, to go back to the earlier part of this video, yeah, I focus on the way things look a lot. I focus on the way they sound a lot. I've never been that great with words. I can try to express myself as best as I can, but I have a lot of pauses. I'm certainly not a Ben Shapiro in any sort of way. I usually have to think a lot about the things that I want to say, and maybe because I do focus on the way things look and the way they sound, maybe some people think that my videos are fluff. I don't know. I try to be as genuine as I can. I'm definitely very careful in the way that I talk about things, though, because you talk about them the wrong way, you use the wrong wording, and you can get your channel taken down. In my earlier YouTube days, I didn't really worry about that. I certainly worry about it now. I don't know what's going to happen to YouTube, regardless of who actually becomes president. And you can probably say, it's Biden. He's the winner. And just like, well, no, that's media saying he's the winner. That's their projection. And generally presidents would give in to those projections. But Trump isn't, and some people are saying, he's being a dictator. And I'm just like, well, he's going against traditions. But unless the Electoral College, which votes on December 14th, unless they say Biden won and then he still doesn't step down, he's not what he's doing right now is not him being like a dictator. Like a lot of people I know on the left have been saying. I think Trump is bad, but I don't think he's quite that bad, but we'll see. I do think he'll probably cause some, if he truly has lost, he'll try to cause as much damage as he can in his last couple months. But, regardless of who becomes president, I think big tech is going to become more censorious. Is that a word? They're going to be more censor happy than ever. And a lot of people are probably going to move on to other platforms. I still think it really sucks that Google took the library app, LBRY, off of the Google Play Store. What an awful move. I guess I don't know what more to say. Thanks for watching.